Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all good? I hope so. Y'all, let's get into episode 2 of House of David, and it's titled Deep Calls to the Deep. Okay? So the scene opens with David, his mom, and some other villagers going to see the Birkat Hakama, and that's when the sun returns to the same position on the same day that it was in at the time of creation. And they go there to recite a special blessing and to thank God for his creation. They sing a blessing to the Lord, and they just stand there in the presence of his glory. Once it was over, David and his mom were leaving, and this man tells them that they shouldn't be there, that they defile the name of Jesse and Bethlehem. So she tells David to stand there a minute while she go put this man in his place. And she told that man, history will remember my son's name long after yours has been forgotten. So David wanted to know if he was cursed, and she told him no, that he was fearfully and wonderfully made. And that comes from Psalms 139. And it's in verse 14 where he says, I will give thanks and praise to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. This particular psalm is the Psalm of David, and the section where that verse is located is titled, The Eternal God Formed Me. And it depends on what version of the Bible you are reading to see that particular title. So let's continue. So his mom tells David to stop and listen. And he does, and she asks him, what did he hear? He was like, nothing. She told him to try again and listen deeply, to listen with his soul, because deep calls to deep. And deep calls to deep comes from Psalms 42:7, chapter 42, verse 7. She said that he won't hear what people are saying. He will hear what God is saying. But David still said that he didn't hear anything, and his mom told him that he will, like eventually you will hear it. Then they go home. David goes down and asks his brothers if he could play with them, but they run away from him. So he walks off. His mom is watching from the window, and she tells David, do not go beyond the wall. And he says, I know. But he walks past the wall anyway. He sits down and prays to God to show him who he is. As he sits there, a lion approaches. Then he hears his mother's voice behind him telling him to sit very still because the lion will sense his fear. She reaches down to grab David's hand and tells him that she loves him with all of her heart. So you already know what she was about to do. So the lion starts approaching. She runs away to keep the lion from running in David's direction, and she is attacked. Jesse hears the screams and he comes running. As soon as he gets there, he asks David, what have you done? He takes her back home and tries to, clean her wounds, help her and everything. But she knows she's about to pass away. So she calls for David and she tells him that she fears that life will be hard for him and that she wouldn't be there to protect him. And I thought that was pretty sad because it came off as if she had no faith in Jesse protecting David or protecting him in a way that she would have. He'd already been treating David different anyway from his other brothers. So she already know that once she leaves the world that he is not going to be protected by his physical father in the same way as she had been protecting him. She said the Lord calls for her and she knows that it's going to be peaceful. She said the Lord has shown her what David will become, and then she tells him to remember, but before she could finish her sentence, she passes away. David runs out of the house. Jesse comes out a little while later, tells him his mother is gone. Then he gives David a staff and tells him to go to the east field and take care of the sheep because in order for him, Jesse, to grieve his wife, he can no longer look at David. And I think that's because 1, he blames David for his mother's death, and 2, he still looks at David like an outcast because he really doesn't know if David is his son. And that's based off of Jewish stories and legends that we have talked about in the recap for the first episode. So you see David walking off, but then you see the teenage David walking in after his battle with the lion from episode 1. His dad has gathered people and it looked like they were trying to form a search party, but Ava sees David approaching. Jesse is happy to see him. He asks him if he's okay. Then he slapped him. And it was one of those, don't you ever do any mess like that again type of slaps. Like, you got me over here worried. It was like that. He didn't know what happened to David. He didn't know if he was dead or alive. But that slap also had to do with disobedience. Jesse told him not to go, but David went anyway. David was hurt, but at the same time unfazed by the slap. He walked off, gave Alva the tusk from the lion, and told her that she didn't have to worry about that lion again. Jesse looks up, and you can see that he looks shocked and bewildered. His facial expression saying, like, wait, did he really take that lion up out of here? Now we go over there with Saul. He was waking up, his daughter is by his bedside, and he asked her, how long have I been out? She ran out and told Jonathan and Abner that he was awake, and he seemed more like himself this time, and it seems like his nervous breakdown is really taking a toll on the whole family, because once Abner walks off to go get the queen, Michal, okay, now in the first review, I said that I was going to call her Mikhail because when I looked it up, that's how they pronounced it. But in this episode, I heard Jonathan call her Michal. So that's what I'm saying. So Michal walks off crying because she can't purge the screams of her father from her mind. She wants to know, what did Samuel do to him? Saul tells his wife and Abner that Samuel intends to anoint another king. The wife thinks that he's just talking crazy because of the nervous breakdown and all the dreams he's been having. And he says that Samuel said that to him as clearly as he was saying it to them right then. He said, that's when I fell into darkness. Then Saul asks Abner, why would you let Samuel leave? And Abner is like, Samuel ain't no ordinary man. His power is not of this world. Basically, he's supernatural. He's covered by God. Abner said that his blade will do nothing to somebody like Samuel. His wife really thinks that her husband is just talking out the side of his face because she says to him, you've been anointed 3 times. The people love you. And Abner says they love Samuel too. So Saul tells Abner to follow Samuel and bring him the one that Samuel anoints. Abner's a little hesitant, but he said it shall be done. As he's walking out, Saul's wife tells him to slay the one Samuel anoints along with everyone in his house, because any weakness in Saul's house would be an ammunition for the Philistines. He didn't respond to her request, so she asked him, who do you serve? He said that he served the house of Saul. He looked her up and down. He walked off. Then we go over to the city of Gath, the Philistine territory, and Achish, king of Gath, has brought the other 5 kings of Philistia together because he wants them all to form a unified army to go after Saul for destroying the house of Amalek. One of the kings thinks that Saul destroying the Amalekites is just rumors. The other one thinks that Achish just has blind vengeance because Saul took out his father years ago. So they don't feel like any of them are equipped to command the 5 armies. They basically insult him, drink his wine, then leave. But Achish tells his men to prepare the horses because they are about to summon new gods. Then we go back to the tribe of Judah. Jesse's sons have returned home with Joab after the battle. They attend a wedding. Joab tells the people of Judah that Saul holds all his people in high favor and that he sent his kin, Merab and Michal, to wish the union of Jacob and Rachel well. As the girls are entering, David is looking at Michal like it's love at first sight. Michal gives greetings from her father and blesses Jacob and Rachel's union. The other daughter feels like they are only there as props in order to keep people from finding out that their dad was over there losing his mind. Merab is not enthused. Like, she don't want to be there. But Michal, she starts like, I want to dance. So she's trying to make the best of it. Joab tries to stop her. I feel like he has a liking for her. And Merab, she notices that too. And she's like, don't be jealous. So everyone is dancing, having fun. David starts playing his harp and he starts singing. Michal seems to be mesmerized by his singing. She can't stop looking over there at him. Then she goes over there to ask him if he wrote the song. She told him that the song was beautiful, and he told her perhaps that he could write her a song one day. Then here comes Joab, telling David to focus on entertaining the guests because that's why you're here. So he holds a knife under David's neck, and Michal tells him to behave himself. So he gives David the blade and tells him that it's for his efforts. Joab says that it came straight from the battlefield, and once David realizes that it was an Amalekite blade, he tossed it in the fire. Joab tells him him, "Watch your head, cousin." And David's actions impressed Michal. So all of a sudden, Joab says it's time for them to go, and he has made, lodging. He set up lodging at his folks' house. So they about to leave. So when Michal is walking out, baby, she can't keep her eyes off David, and David can't keep his eyes off of her. So Eliab comes over and asks David, is he trying to get himself hurt? And he took the knife out of the fire because he says it's metal. But David, he don't care. And Eliab don't care where it came from. But David, he don't want no parts of it because he says that the weapon is cursed. The seer forbid it, talking about Samuel. So he cares where it came from. Eliab doesn't, so he puts it in his belt. Eliab tells David that Joab is not the man to be played with, cousin or not. So it's the next morning, and most of the brothers have hangovers from the party. Eliab is trying to work David's sling, but he just can't get the hang of it. David shows him how it's done, and he breaks a few jars real quick. And Eliab said, "Look, man, you got too much time on your hands with that thing." Then David asked Eliab what would he give him if he hit 2 jars at once. And Eliab said to David, "You won't be able to do that." But David asked him again, "What would you give me?" And Eliab, he started naming off all this crazy stuff. So Eliab says, "If you miss, what will you give me?" Nathanael chimes in and says, "If he misses, he will never show his face in town again to disgrace us." And Eliab told Nathanael that he was the worst brother. Like, man, sit over there and be quiet. So David said he wants to fight with his brothers. One brother feels like there isn't any honor fighting with Saul. Eliab feels differently. He feels like there is. Eliab tells David that swinging that sling is not fighting. It's more like chasing the birds away. And as Eliab is about to pour himself a drink, David whips his sling and breaks the jar. Then he turns around and breaks the 2 jars at one time and tells Eliab again that he wants to fight with them. Eliab tells him that he knows that he cannot put him in the king's army. His brother Abinadab tells David that he should have kept the knife that Joab gave him, but David says that his knife works just fine. He took out a lion with it. But Abinadab laughs and says, "A lion? Last time it was a bear. What's it gonna be next? A dragon?" So they're really just cracking jokes on David. David says it was a lion, and he shows them the scar he got. Then Eliab stands up and shows David all of the wounds he's got in battle, and he says that's because he's a warrior. It's in him. He tells David, "You're a poet and a shepherd, not a man of blood." David looks Eliab square in the eyes and says that he is a warrior. But David's brothers, they don't have any faith in him. He's been an outcast all of his life because they believe that he is an illegitimate son. They don't know David the way David knows himself because they never gave him a chance. So David pleads with Eliab to ask Joab. Eliab tells him that he will not defy their father by putting him in an army that he cannot put him in anyway, because he knows that their dad is not about to pull David out of those fields. David says fine, he'll find his own way. So Eliab stops him and says that he will show him the battlefield. So they head out. As they're walking to the border village, David asks Eliab if he could ask him about his mother because he feels like his memories of her are fading away. Eliab really doesn't want to talk about her, but he says that she was a great woman and he regrets being cruel to her. Then they make it to the border village. David asks who took out all these people. He shows David the handprint, but then Eliab sees somebody watching them. But David is no longer behind him. He has entered a whole nother tent. He's somewhere else. And there is a man in that same tent that's asking him if he was a Hebrew. So he takes off his hood and is Achish. He asked him if he was from the tribe of Judah, tribe of the lion. David said, "Well, I killed a lion, but my brothers don't believe me." And Achish says that he's done several things that his brothers do not believe. He said that greatness is often dismissed by those closest to us. Eliab catches one of the men, pulls his sword, and recognizes that it is made of bronze. So he knows immediately that the man was a Philistine because they were basically the only ones during that time who had access to bronze or kept a close tie on it. Like, they don't want nobody else to get it. They want to be the only ones that have it. So when the man nodded his head that yes, I am a Philistine, he, slit his throat, and he continues to try and find David. So Achish is thinking that David is from the sons of Anak, the giants. And Achish asked him if he believed in the giants, and David said that he believed all the words of Moses, and that it wasn't Moses who drowned the people at the Red Sea. He was just a vessel. He said Hashem, the God of gods, drowned the people. Then Achish says, so there can be no other God? David said that they don't need no other God. Achish, he didn't like that too much, so he pulled his arrow on David and asked him if his God can save him now. By that time, Eliab has thrown a spear through the window, and he told David to run. David jumped out of the window, whipped his sling, and grazed Achish's ear with a stone. And when he caught up with Eliab, he saw him slaying one of Achish's men. One after the other, Eliab was taking them out. Now, he is a true warrior. He is clean with it. And David was scared out of his mind. But Eliab is, he's just good at what he does because he's been doing it for so long. It's just in him. So I feel like it was good to see David scared, because seeing all of that gave him a first-hand look of what it was really like to be in battle. So Eliab slayed several people on their way out of the border village, but Achish was standing on the hill of the village. He set off an arrow that caught Eliab in the back. One of Achish's men asked him if he needed to summon more men to finish David and Eliab off, but he said, no, it's done. We have bigger prey to hunt. Then we get back over there to Saul, who had just left talking with Michal down in the scriptorium, where he showed her a necklace that he had gotten for her mother, and he wanted to know if she thought her mother would like it. And she said that she would cherish it and that it would make her think of simpler times, which is what Michal longed for, because she did not understand why God wouldn't heal her father the way that Moses had healed the people with the bronze, and in some verse of the Bible, they say copper serpent. And it was interesting that Michal was reading about Moses and the bronze serpent, copper serpent, because the irony of it is that Saul is now the snake who is being judged by God. So in the Bible, the color bronze/copper symbolizes sin and God's righteous judgment. And if you go to Numbers 21, chapter 21, verse 4-9, the section titled The Bronze Serpent, it tells how the people became irritated that God sent them around the land of Edom to get to the promised land. They started complaining once again to Moses about the journey and the food. God was tired of them. He was just tired of them complaining. So he sent some fiery, burning serpents among the people. They were bitten. A lot of the Israelites died. Then they went back to Moses, begging him to talk to God. They wanted him to tell God that they apologized. They sinned when speaking against him, and they want him to remove the serpents. So God told Moses to make a serpent of bronze/copper, put it on the flagpole, and if a serpent had bitten any one of the people, all they had to do was look at the bronze serpent and live. So Saul goes back to his room and he's bumping into things. The servant tries to help him, but he screams at him and tells him that he got it. He apologized to Josiah, and Josiah said that the Lord would bless and keep Saul and give him sleep. But Saul, he fears sleep because he always have these horrible nightmares. His wife gets him to lay down with her in front of the fire, and Saul started to reminisce on their simpler times together. He starts to fall asleep, and she rubs his face and she prays and begs him to come back to her, like who you were before, just come back to me. Then we see Jonathan having a flashback to the time his wife gave him a tefillin. He presented it to God in prayer and asked him to show him his purpose. But then he hears a loud noise, and it's his dad dragging a sword. He's having another episode. He's not in his right mind. He tried to attack his wife. Then he tried to attack Jonathan. Abner hears the noise and runs out to help Jonathan calm Saul down, get that sword out of his hand. Then Saul, he snaps out of his episode, and he's looking around. He looks at Jonathan. He begs him to help him, and he questions, how have things come to this? Now back over there with David and Eliab, Eliab is begging David to just leave him, just leave me here because the journey back home is just too far. He doesn't think that David can take him all that way because it was a rather long distance. But David grabs his face and tells him that he is stronger than he thinks he is. Like, I'm stronger than what you, like the way y'all treat me, I am stronger than what you think I am. So he picks him up, put his arm around his neck, and they continue the journey. And that was the end of the episode. So if y'all watched House of David, episode 2, get down in the comments. Let me know what you think about it. And I'll talk to y'all later.